This video is looking at how you go about answering the final question on the conflicts and tension paper. Worth 16 marks, it's the highest value question on the paper, and it's recommended that you should take approximately 20 minutes to answer it. The question that we're going to consider today is the reduction of its armed forces were the worst punishments faced by Germany in the Treaty of Versailles. How far do you agree with this statement? This is typical of the type of question that you will be given in the exam, as it states one factor for you to discuss and it invites you to consider alternative ones. In this particular example, the main focus here is obviously on the Treaty of Versailles and how that punished Germany. But it's important to remember that within this paper you can also be tested on the League of Nations and also the causes of the Second World War. When answering these questions, the best responses will be broken down into three separate factors. The first factor for this question will always be the one that's in the question, so therefore the reduction of Germany's armed forces. We will need to be able to identify accurate and relevant knowledge linked to this factor. So here we might discuss the demilitarisation of the Rhineland, the limits that were put on Germany's navy and its army, as well as perhaps talking about how Germany was forbidden from having any armoured vehicles, any U-boats, and even an air force. This evidence certainly helps to support the statement in the question. However, to achieve a top-level answer, we need to identify and explain other factors too. Our second factor might be the territorial losses that were forced upon Germany. This loss of land was particularly severe, and there are a number of examples that we can use. For example, we might mention the return of Alsace and Lorraine to France. Secondly, we may mention the loss of the coal-rich region of the Saar being put under the control under the League of Nations. Thirdly, we may mention that likewise the same happened with the port of Danzig, and the creation of the Polish corridor meant that Germany was effectively split in two. Finally, the loss of their overseas colonies and empire was another factor which was particularly harshly felt by the Germans. This answer can now access the top levels of the mark scheme if it considers a second alternative argument to the one in the question. We've already discussed the reduction of the armed forces and the territorial losses, so we might also consider the impact of Article 231, also known as the War Guilt Clause. Germany's signing of this term in the treaty legitimised all of the other punishments. For example, the reparations, fixed at 6.6 billion in 1921, were a legitimate punishment for a country that had admitted its responsibility. Likewise, the reduction in the armed forces was fair, as Germany accepted that they had been the aggressor. So, we've now considered the issue in the question and two alternative factors. To end this answer strongly, we need to reach a final judgment. Was it the reduction of the armed forces that was Germany's worst punishment? Or was the loss of territory or Article 231 even worse? There's no right answer to this question. Instead, it relies on you writing a final persuasive argument for one of the factors. You might even demonstrate how some of the factors link together, as, for example, Article 231 legitimised the other punishments. It only remains to remember that as a 16-mark question, this is one where you can pick up additional marks for close attention to your SPAG, your spelling, punctuation and grammar. Check your use of key vocabulary, capital letters and common mistakes such as were and where. Overall, if you follow these type of instructions, if you're writing to this type of style in the exam, arguably without all of the knowledge that has been included on this particular presentation, you are still writing a top level answer and can achieve a high mark on it. So keep this in mind, and when you get into the exam, keep working towards this kind of idea.